Let me tell you something, and I need you to understand this is between you and me. I'm 31, and my name is Charlotte. What happened with Julian and me, it wasn't my fault. Not really. It started over something so small. Something I'd said that I really didn't think was a big deal. The whole thing just spiraled. I mean, I'm the one left here, right? Julian and I had been together for almost 5 years, living in this one-bedroom apartment that was perfectly fine for us. We had a dog, a fluffy mutt named Benny, and we had our routines. We'd get up, he'd go to his job at some engineering firm, and I'd work from home doing graphic design stuff for a company that sells organic dog treats. Ironically enough, things were normal, maybe a little too normal. I felt like I was doing all the emotional heavy lifting. I mean, he was sweet and all, but it was like pulling teeth to get him to talk about his feelings. He'd just shut down, get quiet, and I'd have to practically beg him to tell me what was wrong. He had this way of just going numb when we'd have a disagreement. I'd be trying to talk things out, and he'd just stare at me with this empty look, like I was speaking a different language. It was infuriating. I'd try to get a rise out of him, anything, just to know he was listening, and he'd just go silent. We'd be in the middle of a discussion, and he'd just get up and walk away, leaving me there to talk to myself. It was the absolute worst. He'd say things like, "I'm too tired for this, Charlotte," or "I just need a minute." A minute! He'd take a minute that would turn into a day. He was a classic, emotionally withdrawn type. It was like living with a ghost. I'd try to push him to open up, to share what was on his mind, but he'd just get quiet and distant. He'd put on his headphones and start playing games on his Xbox, and that would be the end of it. But the one thing that always got a reaction from him was his son, Ethan. Ethan was 14, and he lived with his mom, Julian's ex, across town. Julian would see him on weekends, and they were super close. Ethan was on the autism spectrum, and it was a big part of their lives. Julian was always so careful, so gentle with him. He'd talk about Ethan's special interests, old video games, classic sci-fi movies, that kind of thing. He'd spend hours with Ethan building Lego sets and just talking about all the things Ethan loved. I didn't get it. Honestly, I thought Julian was being too soft on him. I'd say things like, "He's not a little kid anymore. Julian, he's 14. I felt like Julian was constantly walking on eggshells around him, and it bugged me. I thought he was setting him up to be this socially awkward guy who couldn't handle the real world. We had this one day, a couple weeks ago, that was just awful from the start. I'd been working all morning on this logo, and the client kept sending back changes that made 0 sense. Julian had been quiet all day, just in his own little world, playing some sci-fi game on his Xbox. The silence was getting to me. I wanted him to be present, to ask me about my day, to just be a part of my life. But it was like I was in a room by myself. I went to the kitchen to get some water, and I could hear his headphones faintly. The sound of the game, the little chirps and beeps, was driving me nuts. It was like the game was more important than me. I decided to go for a walk to clear my head, and I saw a notification pop up on Julian's phone. He'd left it on the kitchen counter, and it was a text from Ethan. It said something about how he'd been picked on at school again and how he felt like a weirdo. I felt my stomach tighten. I knew Julian would go into full-on protective mode. I knew what that meant. A long, emotionally draining conversation where Julian would coddle Ethan, and I'd be on the sidelines, feeling ignored. I rolled my eyes and put the phone down, heading out the door. When I got back, the mood was still heavy. Julian was still on the couch, staring at the screen, but the game was paused. He had his headphones off, and he was just holding them in his hands. Looking down, I asked him what was wrong, and he didn't answer right away. He just sighed, a long, tired sigh. I had to ask him again before he'd finally say, "Ethan's having a hard time. The kids at school are being jerks. He feels like he's different." And there it was, the thing I knew was going to happen. I felt this immediate frustration. I knew what Julian was doing. He was making this whole situation about Ethan and not about us. I thought, this is my life. I'm always going to be a second thought. I couldn't help but say, "Julian, he's going to have to learn to deal with it. You can't protect him from everything. He's not special just because he's autistic." I said it with this tone, like I was the only one who saw the bigger picture. I was trying to be realistic, not growl. I was trying to make a point, but I could see the words hit him like a punch. The color drained from his face. Not just his face. His whole body seemed to go limp. He just looked at me, and that's when I knew I messed up. He stood up, slowly, and looked at me with this wounded look I'd never seen before. He didn't yell. He didn't even raise his voice. He just looked at me and said, "I can't believe you just said that, Charlotte." And then he did what he always did. He walked away. But this time, it was different. This time, he didn't just go to the bedroom or the kitchen. He went straight to the closet, grabbed an old backpack, and started putting his things in it. He didn't say another word. He was just packing his clothes, his toiletries, his laptop, and the Xbox. The Xbox. It was a stupid little thing, but seeing him pack it was a slap in the face. It was like he was saying, "This is all that matters to me now." I tried to tell him he was being dramatic, that it was just a misunderstanding, that he was overreacting, but he just ignored me. It was like I was invisible. He packed the Xbox in his backpack, zipped it up, and grabbed his keys from the bowl by the door. He didn't even look at me. He just walked out the door, and I heard the lock click behind him. He was gone. I just stood there, staring at the empty space where he'd been. The apartment felt so big all of a sudden. I felt this rush of anger, this overwhelming feeling of being abandoned. How could he just do that? How could he just leave over a few words? I just stood there, my mouth open, not believing what just happened. After a while, I tried to call him, but it went straight to voicemail. I texted him a million times, saying things like, "You're being ridiculous, and you need to come home and talk to me." He never responded. That night, I tried to get on the Wi-Fi to send a message to my friend, but it wasn't working. I tried to reconnect, but the password had been changed. I knew it was him. It was just another little jab, another way to show me that he was done. For the next few weeks, I was a mess. I was angry, confused, and I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd said. I kept replaying the words in my head, but I still couldn't see how they were so bad. I was just being realistic. I was just trying to help him see that he couldn't protect his son from the world forever. But no one saw it that way. When I'd talk to my friend about it, she'd just get quiet and say, "Charlotte, you can't say things like that, right?" It was like everyone was on his side. My own friend was taking his side. I started to feel like everyone was against me. A month later, I got a text from Julian. I thought it would be an apology, a message saying he was coming home, but it wasn't.
It was a link to a moving company website,
Asking me to confirm the date he'd be coming to get his stuff. His stuff. Not our stuff, but the things he still had here. He was just gone. And that's when I knew he wasn't coming back. I was in a fog for a few days, just numb. And then the anger came back, stronger than ever. How could he just throw away everything we had over one conversation? A few weeks later, I was on my lunch break, scrolling through my phone, and I saw a post from Julian's ex, Ethan's mom. It was a picture of Julian and Ethan, smiling, and another woman standing next to them. She was gorgeous, with a bright smile and kind eyes. The caption said something like, "So happy we could spend the day at the park. So grateful for Julian and his support. And so happy to have met this lovely woman, Anna." My heart just sank. He had moved on. He had just packed up his things, left me, and found someone else. It was like our entire relationship was just a footnote in his life. I found myself going through her social media, which I know is a terrible thing to do, but I couldn't help it. She was a teacher, an art teacher. She had all these pictures of her with her students, all happy and smiling. She seemed so nice. And she was always doing these things with Julian and Ethan. They were going to the zoo, to the museum, to the park. It was like she was a part of their lives. And I was just an afterthought. I started to feel this bitter resentment. How could he just move on like that? How could he find someone so quickly who just seemed to fit into his life so perfectly? I tried to get on with my life. I went out with friends, tried to start a new hobby, but nothing felt right. Everything reminded me of him. I started to resent Julian, his ex, his son, and even that Anna person. I felt like they were all a part of this conspiracy to make me feel bad. I started to see my friend less because she would always say things like, "Are you sure you want to go out? You seem a little on edge, Charlotte." She was just as bad as Julian, always walking on eggshells. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that my own friend would turn on me. I decided to stop talking to her for a while, and the silence just got to me. I felt so alone. I tried to go back to my life, to my work, but I couldn't focus. I started to miss deadlines, and my clients started to get annoyed. I got an email from them a few days ago saying they were going with another designer. It was a blow, a huge blow. I had to start looking for a new job, a new client, and I just couldn't bring myself to do it. And then, a few days ago, I got a notification from Julian. He had posted a picture of him and Anna on his profile. They were standing in front of a house, not an apartment. A real house, a small, cozy-looking house with a garden. The caption said something about new beginnings and how happy he was. I couldn't believe it. He had a new house, a new relationship, and a new life, and I was still here, in our old apartment, with our dog, and the echo of his absence. I looked at the picture and saw the way he was looking at her, and it was a look I'd never seen him give me. It was a look of pure contentment, of genuine happiness. He was happy, and I was here, Samish. I knew what I had done, and I knew I couldn't take it back. But I couldn't help but feel that he had just left me, thrown me away, and moved on, and I was the one who was left here, alone, in a place that used to be our home, and I hated him for it. I hated him for being happy, for being successful, for finding someone who was everything I wasn't, and I knew, deep down, that this was just the beginning of my misery. It was like I had traded everything for a few words I said in anger, and he was the one who got to walk away with a smile.